Welcome to Beyond the Type, the podcast where we explore personality type, communication, and the beautifully messy and sometimes complicated human experience. I'm Sandy Swanson, communication and relationship coach, here to help you better understand yourself and others so you can thrive in all areas of life. Let's get into it. Well, greetings everyone, Sandy here, and I have a question for you. And the question is, how do you take in the world? So each of us takes in the world through one of three centers of intelligence. And I'm going to ask you that question again after a brief description of each center, which I'm going to give you now. And then in this episode, we'll dive a little bit deeper into what each center is all about and which types on the Enneagram lead with that center. So just in brief, the three centers of intelligence are the head center, the heart center, and the gut or the body center. So the head center is the center of thinking, reasoning, logic, all the stories we tell ourselves. The heart center is where our emotions are, and it's also the center of relationships. And then finally, the body center or the gut center. This is our gut knowing, our sensing of the environment, just knowing something, that gut instinct. And it's also the seat of action or doing. So after hearing that, I'm curious, what center do you think you lead with? And I'll get more into it as we go along. But this center of intelligence, whatever one we prefer, we have all three, but we prefer one. This is our filter through which we see everything, or a lens. Some people like to call it a lens. So each one of us takes in the world first through the head, the body, or the heart. And this is important information when you're talking about relationships or communicating with others, because not everyone sees the world like you. Not everyone perceives the world like you do. And that's a beautiful thing. It allows for a lot of diversity. And it can cause a lot of conflict. See the current political state here in the U.S. I'm recording this in 2025. Say no more. So it can be difficult to discern which center we lead with because we live in a very heady information age. And yet we are not all head types. So I've had clients who assume they're head-centered when in reality they are heart-centered or body-centered. And learning this, it's very validating to them, and it allows these clients to be more confident in who they are authentically. So let's go through each one, and let's start with the body. And I'll explain why we always start with the body. So the body center of intelligence is where our instincts are. This is our gut knowing and sensing. So this is all about energy, sensing and intuiting. You know how animals can sense a hurricane or a tornado or a storm coming? Or when your cat goes straight to the person who assumes they don't like cats. I assume they do like cats. They just don't know that. But that's the body center of intelligence in action. And unfortunately, we humans, we sometimes forget we have a body. Gut knowing isn't always accessed. Mostly because we haven't been taught how to use this center. So yeah, the woes of the information age makes us very heady. So to help with this, with accessing the gut center, one question I ask my clients if they're feeling conflicted about something is this: what is your gut telling you? Simple question. But almost instantly, these clients, they have an answer. They know exactly what needs to happen. Whether or not these clients actually take action and follow through, that's another story, because the head usually takes over and starts thinking of logistics, consequences, the what ifs. So we prefer that head center in our culture for sure. So the body center is the only thing about us that is 100% present all the time. So thoughts come and go, feelings come and go. We may dwell on the past, get anxious about the future, but our bodies are here. They are present always, 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 always. And this is why mindfulness and meditation practices often start with sensing the breath or feeling your feet on the ground. These practices invite you to become aware and present with your body center and its underused intelligence. So the body types on the Enneagram, these are types 8, 9, and 1. And we all have access to this center, but types 8, 9, and 1, they filter the world through this lens. And they're considered body types for this reason. These types unconsciously take in the world first through sensing and instinct. And here's a fun fact about Enneagram teachings and why we start with the body first. It is because before we had a fully functioning heart center of intelligence, so feelings, relationships, emotions, and a fully functioning head center, thinking and reasoning, we had an intelligent body that instinctively knew when we were sleepy, when we were hungry, when we needed a diaper changed. So this is why most Enneagram teachers start with 8, 9, and 1, not 1, 2, and 3. Pretty neat, huh? So anger. Let's talk anger and the body center. So each center has an emotion associated with it. And for the body types, it is anger. Why anger? Well, because the body types of 8, 9, and 1, they value and they desire control and autonomy. So when they don't get that, boom, anger appears. And again, you'll hear me say this over and over again when talking about the Enneagram. A lot of this is unconscious. A lot of this, we just move through the world not knowing we're angry, not knowing what we're doing, not knowing why we're doing it. So this is the beauty of the Enneagram. It helps bring these things to light, helps you better understand yourself and why you do the things you do. So this anger from types 8, 9, and 1, this could be quite subtle. So you can be annoyed, detached, cold, indifferent, impatient, exasperated, resentful, or it can be more intense. Being openly sarcastic or righteous, spiteful, and, even worse, being hostile, aggressive, vengeful. So there's a lot of shades in this color that is anger. And anger also shows up differently for each of these 3 types. And with every center of intelligence and that emotion, one tends to overdo that emotion, one tends to underdo it, and one tends to repress it. So with anger, type 8s, they tend to overdo it. They can be very direct, they can be very blunt in their anger, and their energy can get really big. And they don't always see this, but others do. Type 9s, they tend to underdo anger. They can really disconnect from it, and they may become passive-aggressive. Type 9s are all about harmony, avoiding conflict. And finally, type 1s, they tend to repress anger. And this anger might eventually turn into resentment, might leak out in the form of judginess, being critical, a self-righteous attitude, or even getting angry at oneself for being angry in the first place. Type 1s are all about doing things right. They might have a perfectionistic streak. So if they're angry, they might be angry at themselves for being angry because that's not the right thing to do. So I'm curious if you know anyone that leads with this center, and what indicates that? How do you know? Or do you lead with this center? So the heart center of intelligence is the center of emotions and relationships. So these people take in the world first through the filter of their feelings. So after the body develops and we are born in this world, we start noticing others, our caregivers, other families, siblings. We start feeling things. And I'm not talking about poop in the diapers. I'm talking about emotions, how we feel towards others. And when I tell clients about the 3 centers and ask them which resonates the most, those who truly lead with the heart, they say almost immediately, oh yeah, for sure, my heart center. So going back to that first question I asked you, top of this episode, what was your initial response? Did you say, oh yeah, my heart? Did you have to think about it? If you had to think about it, maybe don't lead with your heart center. Something to be curious about. So this triad is also called the image triad, and these types strive to seek attention and approval from others. Again, this is very unconscious. So the heart center can get a little woo for many, and much like the body center of intelligence, this center can be overlooked in our culture, which is unfortunate because heart intelligence has a great deal to offer us. This center allows us to feel, to process, to understand our emotions, and it also allows us to feel empathy and compassion for others. I mean, who wouldn't want more of that, especially in 2025? The emotion associated with the heart center is sadness or shame. So types 2, 3, and 4 in this center, they desire to be loved for who they are. And when they don't get that love, shame or sadness appears. And this shame or sadness shows up differently for each type. Again, overdoing it, underdoing it, repressing it. So type 2s, they tend to repress their sadness and shame. They can overlook their own feelings and needs and put others ahead of themselves. They might strive to put on a happy face and be positive instead of fully feeling what's really going on with their emotions. Type 3s tend to deny or ignore any sadness or shame. And instead, they work even harder to lead a life based on their work or their image, not who they truly are inside. And type 4s, they tend to overdo sadness or shame. So they focus on their inner world, on how unique and creative they are, and they can really get lost in fantasy at times. And this type may also not be afraid to share their sadness or shame with others. They're very open and welcoming for all emotions, including sadness or shame. So I work with a lot of clients who want to be less emotionally reactive, and this can happen when the heart center is out of balance. So working on the heart center is a great place to start. I invite you to do this now. What happens to you when you place your hand over your heart and just relax into the center? What are you noticing? What are you feeling? And do you know anyone, or do you lead with this center? And again, what indicates this for you? So finally, the head center of intelligence. And these are types 5, 6, and 7. So this is where thoughts, logic, reasoning, words, labels, stories is where all that stuff hang out. And people who lead with their head, they take in the world through the filter of their minds. And the head center is the last to develop after the body, which is sensations, and the heart, which is emotions. So this triad is also called the fear triad, and they strive to seek safety and to be safe. And again, keep in mind the striving, it's usually unconscious. Our information age culture prizes the head center above the other two centers, which can lead many people to think they lead with the center, when in fact they don't. A lot of gut-centered clients of mine, they're kind of confused. They might say, well, my head, but maybe also my gut. It's a very underused center in our culture. So understanding our preferred filter and bringing in the other two filters, this is part of working with the Enneagram, balancing those centers. So I mentioned fear, and types 5, 6, and 7, they desire security and safety, and they overcome this fear by thinking, by planning, by analyzing, by forecasting potential problems. Does this sound like you? I have a lot of clients who lead with their head, mostly type 6. There's a lot of what ifs, a lot of forecasting potential problems with these clients. And again, fear shows up differently for each type. Type 5s, they tend to repress their fear. So like 4s retreating into their inner world with emotions, type 5s will retreat to their inner worlds and their thoughts, and they'll control their energy, they'll control their boundaries. This is how they deal with fear. And type 5s, I mentioned boundaries, they usually have the best boundaries of any type. They are not afraid to say no. Type 6s, they tend to overdo the fear. So this is forecasting potential problems. They get focused on finding danger, figuring out worst case scenarios. And I must say, they are excellent troubleshooters for this reason. They can see what might go wrong. They figure out a solution. You always want a 6 in your life. If you are working on a team or if you're on a trip, when things go wrong, they will have already thought up a plan for whatever has happened. As a result, they tend to be the calmest person in the room in a crisis because they've already thought it through. They know exactly what to do. And finally, type 7s. So type 7s, they tend to deny or ignore their fear. And they will focus on what's positive, much like type 2s and type 9s. And they will ignore any unpleasant feelings. Type 7s are also really good at reframing any situation to a positive one, and they can spin their fear into a great story that they will absolutely tell over and over again, making it even more and more extravagant each time they tell it. So again, it's important to remember that this fear and also the sadness, shame, the anger, and our responses to it, they're very unconscious. So one note about the 3 subtypes of type 6. So most of the time, fear for this type can manifest as anxiety. However, one of the 3 subtypes will move toward their fear, and this can look like anger to the outsider. And as a result, this subtype can often be mistaken for type 8, which is very open and direct with their anger. So more on subtypes in a future episode, but my point is typing can be very difficult. So it's important to understand with what type you lead so you are not doing someone else's work. And I offer typing interviews. So if you're interested in learning more about yourself, learning more about your type, what you lead with, what center of intelligence you lead with, I'll leave a link for that in the show notes if you'd like to check that out. So when it comes to working with the head center, one of the best ways to calm the mind and stop that train of unproductive thinking is to tune into the body. So in the somatic work I do with my clients, this can be super awkward if we are not used to noticing our bodies, coming from someone who did not realize she had a body until a few years ago. Guilty as charged. So this can be difficult, but it's really good work. And you can do this yourself. You don't necessarily need a coach. There's a lot of good meditation apps, guided body scans that will really help you get in touch with your body and get out of your head. But if you want to do a quick practice right now, feeling your feet on the ground is such a great place to start. So it's a 3-step process. The first, simply notice your feet on the ground. If your legs are crossed, uncross them right now. If you're laying down, maybe you can still feel your feet on the bed or on the floor. But just notice your feet. And then step 2, notice every time your head starts up with the thinking, the planning, the what ifs. So what am I going to have for dinner? What am I doing tomorrow? What time am I picking up the kids? So it may be a lot. That's okay. That's okay. Step 3 is coming back to noticing the body and feeling your feet on the ground. So just let those thoughts go. Come back to the body. Come back to feeling the feet on the ground. And as you practice this, you may start noticing other bodily sensations. So maybe a tingling in the feet or the hands, a tension in the shoulder or the jaw. Maybe you're holding your shoulders up around your ears. And that's all fine. You don't have to do anything other than notice. So I invite you to set a timer for 3 minutes and try this practice once a day. And let me know what comes up for you, if anything. All right. Well, that's it for the Centers of Intelligence and this episode. Always curious what your takeaways are. You can always send me a message over at swansoncoaching.com. And again, I'll leave some resources in the show notes. I'll see you soon. Stay curious, my friend.